Hi friends, and welcome to the channel. This is a little podcast where I enjoy sharing my insights. And today I'm talking about what does it mean to be two-faced? You may have accused someone of being two-faced, or someone may have told you you're being duplicitous or two-faced, or speaking out of both sides of your mouth. And so I want to talk about this idea of two. And talk about what very few people ever talk about, and that is, what does it mean to be single-faced? Or more appropriately, no-faced. Stick around. You may have heard the famous platitude to dance like no one is watching. Well, this can be applied to our lives. To live like no one is watching. And that sounds so good, doesn't it? It sounds so good to be able to do that. And we've demonstrated those moments where we are blissfully unaware of anyone looking at us, thinking of us, speaking of us. This beautiful, peaceful state that Big Brother isn't watching, criticizing, and judging. So, you may have heard that spiritual alignment is a thing. To get in tune, that sort of thing. Synchronicity. Those are words thrown around to trigger that sensation of being in tune. But there is a sense of being yourself, isn't there? Now, some people never get comfortable alone. So even that is troublesome in that they cannot be themselves. Because there is a sense that I'm being watched. Perhaps maybe because we develop this very distant notion that God is watching us from a distance. So even that is a frightening experience. But a two-faced person is different in private than they are in public. So you have your public self and your private self. And very few people seem to be able to demonstrate a singularity. I don't know why. Possibly because we want to fit in. We want to be accepted. We want to be liked. We want to be one of the gang. So what we do is we have a hard time being ourselves in front of others. And you know how this feels. When other pairs of eyes are on you, it's hard to demonstrate your best performance. And your best performance is when you're absolutely quiet, when you have shaken off this eerie feeling that someone else is listening, watching, judging, praising. Where do we see this two-faced stuff? Well, you're going to have to be, it's real sly, because you're going to have to start paying attention to your own behavior. Are you one way in front of others and another way behind closed doors? Only you know what that's like. So let's say you have to give a public speech, and you watch that speech and you notice that your breath is shallow, the pitch of your voice goes up, and there's a lot of activity, and you become something else. You can sense I'm in front of someone. There's a whole change. And then when the camera goes off, or you go off stage, there's a sense of relief. And you go back to being yourself. The makeup comes off. The pressure comes off. But single-facedness is practiced. And the way you practice that is feeling comfortable, alone, and then maybe feeling comfortable in front of your pets. I don't know. Feeling comfortable to interject humor, to be yourself, to say, to do, to act spontaneously. So we practice, if we have to give a public appearance or a public performance, we practice performing so that there is absolutely no difference between the practice and the performance. You see, that line is blurred in a single-faced encounter. So what you see is what you get. And what we want to do is we want to bring our private self, our secret self, our true self, into the limelight. Now, there are two ways of seeing this light. You have the sublime light, the sublimity of just being comfortable in nature, being comfortable in your underwear at home. You see what I'm saying? Not that you would go around in your underwear, but it is kind of the same thing. The self that goes around in their underwear, or even without clothes, is the self that goes into public. You still remember yourself you're still in underwear. Everybody's in their underwear. So they often say, you imagine, if you're going to give a public speech, you imagine everybody in their underwear. And it lightens the mood. So, single-facedness is practiced. Right? And it's very difficult to demonstrate your truth if you have to speak in front of 10,000 people. And see, a lot of us ruin our single-facedness when success comes. get a lot of subscriptions, and all of a sudden we've got to become somebody. It's the Susan Boyle effect. Y'all remember Susan Boyle? Campy, raw, honest. And she becomes famous and all of a sudden loses a bunch of weight and gets glamorous. And we lost the single-faced side. That's not to say that you can't get all dolled up. But there's something about keeping your feet on the ground every day and not having to dress up your appearance. Not have to, what we call, put on airs to go to work, to make a YouTube channel, to write a book. It is very difficult to bring your transparency around with you. And that's what I'm liking to do in my life. I want to be single-faced, which means I don't have a face. I don't have a head. I'm not aware of myself as being different. I'm not aware of myself as being itchy in a costume. As a performer, in my former life, I was a performer. And when you play a recital or you give a public speech or something, the first piece that you perform or the first song that you sing is what you would call an icebreaker. You know how that is? You go to some kind of new thing and everybody's got to do an icebreaker. That's because everybody's just got this feeling of being watched. And how do we ease people out of that paranoia? By becoming single-faced. Seriously dress down as much as you possibly can. In your heart. Even if you have to wear a tuxedo, you want to dress down in your spirit. That's not looking down on people. That's not having an inferiority complex. That's not I'm better than you. That is a sincere form of humility to bind the nakedness together. To come down where we ought to be. To nestle ourselves in that wonderful place that whoever is watching me is me. Even if you're performing in front of 1 million people, you're speaking. That's what I admire so much about Eckhart Tolle. I would love to meet him someday, because what you see is what you get. I'm sure behind closed doors, he is exactly as you would find him in front of the camera, in front of the audience. The author behind all of his books and success is a single face, a unity that he's trying to demonstrate. If you're putting on a show, if you're putting on airs, if you're performing for others, if you're acutely aware of your audience, of your followers, it only adds to the paranoia. So we must practice tuning into that sense of comfort, disappearing into the texture, being, in a sense, sitting on the deck with a glass of lemonade and your closest friends, and being in that environment, wherever you go, and speaking, writing, dancing, creating content, whatever the case may be, you maintain that practice of not feeling like an alien being watched by a group of people who are not you. Feeling like an alien is what's called alienation, foreignness, separation, sin. Sin in math, or sine, means without. You contemplate that. That fundamentally, the bags of skin that are watching you are as spiritual as you are, one as you are. And that's synchronicity, that's alignment, that's in tune, comfortable. Open. The same in front and the same behind. Single-faced. Completely gone, yet present everywhere. Practice being comfortable alone. Let the tension in your body always be released. And then in the presence of one or another person, practice that. Being completely absorbing, not confrontational as in facing. Be self-effacing, single face. And whatever needs to be said to you or whatever you need to see, you see it without any confrontation. Because you're essentially no-faced. And then 2 people, 3 people, 4 people, 5 people, 1 million people, 4 million subscribers, 10,000 comments are no different. Private and public become no different. Me and you become no different. And practice and performance become no different. My name is Ryan. Please check out my blog when you have a moment. It's called mymorningmotivator.com.